And we're live on YouTube, LeagueGaming.com. Hi, it's Tony Sibilla, T-Sibs88 with you. And as promised, the first installment, actually, of Ask the Commissioner. And we've been lucky enough to bring you the creator of League Gaming, the man who had the vision to start this. And he has agreed to do a show with us tonight, and hopefully every few weeks down the road we'll revisit with Tristan Hodge and find out how things are going in the league. First of all, Tristan, thank you so much for taking part of this, and I really appreciate your time today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Tristan
I always
Hodge,
enjoy
and
these
find
types
out
of
how
events
things are
and
going in the league. First of all, Tristan, thank you so much
their
for
sort of perspectives
taking part of this, and
just being involved. So
I really appreciate. Right. So let's talk about. Well, we're going to talk about the beginnings of all this, but let's talk about season one. Just because I play in the PlayStation hockey version of League Gaming, and last season was season number 1 for the PlayStation Network for LGHL. And now we're into season 2. I just want to get your thoughts initially on what happened in season 1, how things went as far as you saw them, what adjustments you guys felt you needed to make going from season 1, season 2. But let's just talk initially about your, how would you summarize season 1 for the PSN?
Well, season 1, so I have to put it in perspective of the Xbox League, because we've been running the Xbox League for so long. And, I know what it's like to start a league up from scratch and to sort of, build up the infrastructure and the foundation you need to make it strong. I did not predict we would even get a full NHL. I honestly thought we'd get maybe 20 teams, right, a couple hundred guys, and everything else would have been gravy. So to get what we got in season 1, the type of interest we got, is no doubt a absolute surprise and a wonderful sort of result. I was extremely beyond my wildest expectations, because the odds were against us, mostly because we've never ventured into PS4. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest thing. In Xbox, we can always, hit up all our members. We have, a community of 20, 30,000 people that we could always, essentially tap into to get into a new league. So it's easier for us to go, if we want to do a different type of league in Xbox, we would have, I always thought we'd have more success. So to go into PS4 and then have that type of result was an absolute smashing success in that sense. So, I was, very, very happy to see that. We had 2,200 people in season 1.
Wow,
that's insane.
Yeah, and
so I was gonna say, so and to get where if you when did you join LG? What point did you jump in?
I actually jumped in after the draft happened and the bidding. I signed up just before the season started. I did get a preseason game in, so I was assigned as a training.
Which bidding?
Player.
AHL?
Sorry.
AHL or NHL bidding?
Any of it. I missed all of it.
Okay, so yeah, you were there for the random assignments.
Right.
Okay, so yeah.
And so yeah, and again, and you and I were talking a little bit beforehand. I came from hardly ever playing anything on a PlayStation platform. I had PS3. I bought the hockey games. I bought baseball. I thought, okay, this is nice. It's kind of cool to play every so often, but it wasn't that interesting. It was NHL 15 when I got into doing the online stuff, and that, again, I think everyone's got the same issue. That winds up being something where you're like, okay, it's fun playing online. It's great playing with other guys, but again, the drop-in competition, that's something that everyone always has an issue with. What kind of games do you wind up getting? And so
or even the club too, right? We offer sort of a different experience.
Yeah. And the club, again, okay, if you're starting out, it's hard to get onto a club because a lot of these guys know each other. They have set teams. So I grew to knew a few people, and I probably had maybe 20, 25 friends, but it wasn't until I got on LG. Now I'm up to 150, 160. I forgot what the count is at this point now, but it was such a different experience. And I have to imagine, as we're going to head into the part where we talk about how you started this, I have to imagine that you had a very similar experience or something like that led you down the path to start League Gaming.
Yeah, so I mean, the start of League Gaming actually is LG is going to be 13 in a couple weeks.
Right.
So I started the site a long time ago. I started LG. If you want to get into the actual history of where I kind of came from, I started LG 2003 in June, and basically I'm a random gamer like yourself. I used to play whatever game, but it was the online stuff that kind of just completely drew me in. It's playing with your friends and competing against humans, because I hated playing against computers. Once you play against humans, it's never the same, right?
Absolutely.
So I remember I just randomly started the Xbox beta in 2000. I think it was like 2002. So I'm an original member, and then from there, the only game you could ever play online on Xbox beta was this racing game.
Right.
It was called MotoGP. And then I loved it so much. I was like, top 5 in the world for that game out of like 300,000. I was extremely, extremely competitive. And, a site was born out of it. It's a site that doesn't exist anymore. But they did things like teams, and then, they had like managers of teams and stuff like that. And, they'd have scheduled events and races, and it completely drew me in because it was an organized event that was like nothing else out there. And they did everything manually. Mm-hmm. Now, my background is a programmer, so I started developing scoreboard systems essentially for them. Why don't we do stats this way, and make things easier for everybody. So I did that, and then what happened is the very first hockey game was online, NHL 2K3, about a year later. And as a Canadian, I love hockey, so I'm like, I really like racing, but I really kind of want to do something for hockey. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, instead of just doing it for this other website, why don't I start my own website up? So NHL 2K3, I started League Gaming to do a hockey league. We did it because only back then you could only play 1 versus 1. And so LG started as a singles hockey league for NHL 2K3, 13 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and ever since then, it's always been, community has always been competition, friendly competition. This isn't a money site. This is like, I started because I wanted to play people, and then I really liked the stat side of it. I really liked the organization. I really liked the tools. I really liked, at work, just looking at stats and your stats and who you're going to play.
Right.
So that's where LG came from. And then NHL 08 was the very first time you could play online with multiple people, because you could always in the older games you could always play like 2-on-2, but you always had to have people beside you, right? Like nobody would ever do that. But with NHL 08 was the very first time you could actually have 3-on-3. So that NHL 08 is the very first time we actually created the LGHL. We called it the LG Team League back then, but that was the start of the Xbox League, and ever since then we're going on our 24th season starting up, and then the last season was our very first season in PlayStation. So that's the kind of the short form of where LG's been. LG's always been around. I'm a pretty consistent person. We've never gone down. We've never, so many sites have come and gone through my 13 years of doing this. So there's a long history, and I think it shows into the leagues we produce today.
So talk a little bit about the beginning of it, and why the Xbox community took off with this, and has been, what are we into, like 23 seasons, or is it more now?
They're in the playoffs at 23 right now.
Yeah. Again, because I'm sort of a novice about the whole gaming world, and maybe that's not the case for most of the guys listening tonight, but why did it take off an Xbox first? Why did it take this long to get the history. PS?
So Xbox had the network enabled, because you got to remember back with the original Xbox, when I'm talking the very first Xbox, they were the only ones to have a network card. Like they thought ahead. So they were the ones that did Xbox Live, because the Xbox was the first system to have like what do you call it, where Xbox handled the online portion of a game. Where PlayStation, back with PlayStation 2, there were games online, you'd have to buy a modem, and then every individual game would have to have their own online components, which in theory meant sometimes friends lists, chaos with messaging system, chaos with like invites. Everything was kind of done to the developers, whereas Xbox kind of standardized it. So this is why the Xbox community was always bigger. It's because it started bigger. I remember Xbox was the first ones even charged for it, but for whatever reason, most people were okay with that. I mean, PlayStation 3, they finally went like with an online service, but it was always, the argument was it was never as good as Xbox, and there's some truth to that, into the features that Xbox always had. So I mean, the community always came from Xbox because Xbox supported online play better. Like that's the truth.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I'm not biased to any system. I own all the Xboxes. I own all the PlayStations, all the Nintendo systems. I just always gone where the competition has gone, and that's always been Xbox. Because, and then as you're discovering now, you've got 100 friends now. Think about if you had 10 years of that. All your friends would always be, it would always be in that single console. So that's why LG started and still remains a pretty dominant Xbox league. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's the history is there. I mean, we've been around a long time, and Xbox is always the strongest in online play.
So, so when you started out down this road, did you have any cohorts who were instrumental in getting it going, who were helpful in the early seasons, who made this a reality for you?
So that's an interesting question. So I've always been very protective of LG, where it's always been me. Mm-hmm. And the reason is I always, I have my own business and stuff like that. One thing I've learned over the years is you never really want to partner with somebody, because you're only going to be as good as your partner sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I've been very protective. I mean, when we started out, we had people that helped us and ran leagues and, did certain tasks. But I always kept it me, because I'm stable, like in life and the world and all that, where, LG, like I said, LG is a product of stability, because I'm stable where I can keep it up and keep the site going, and I'm not gonna go crazy one day and ban everybody and shut the site down and whatnot. So, I mean, there's been through the 13 years, we've had many different admins, red names, some that are still with us, some that are not. We've had people that have come in as commissioners, people who've been promoted from red names as commissioner. I mean, like Brody's like my number 2 essentially for all of LG, because he handles a lot of the rules. He is a great organizer. Ozzy is another red name. He was there that helped basically run the site when I went to work for 2K Sports. Stag Zill is another guy that's not around anymore, but still in the NHL community that still plays. So I mean, a lot of those guys are the key guys that have kept LG going through the 13 years, I would say. And they all have different skills, and they've all been there for different points of LG. But it's been a long road. So I mean, I know you're jumping in at season 1 here of the PlayStation League, but I mean, we've had a long history.
Right. So I just wanted to provide some history for the people so that they kind of get more of a sense. And I know you talk a little bit about it on the I think on the site. You mentioned a little bit how it started, but I wanted the guys to get a chance to hear it right from you as to how this all started out. So now, I'm used to playing hockey, and obviously there are other games on here. The expansion to other leagues and other games. First, obviously there are a ton of Madden players out there who love it. There's, NBA 2K, what have you. Besides hockey, who were the first ones to clamor for something like League Gaming to be able to organize what they did?
So, I mean, you're talking about 13 years ago all the way up to now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, we had basketball leagues. I think one of the second most popular league we ever had was probably the MLB 2K League for Xbox. Mm-hmm. I mean, we would get a couple hundred guys that would want to do that. And again, these are all single leagues, because that was how we started back in the day. But the problem we're finding with a lot of these sports is the communities are very niche, where the people they're very, very interested early on in the first couple months. Like come March and April, everybody wants to play a baseball game.
Right.
Nobody wants to play a baseball game in like November, December. Or,
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So we've never been able to keep those leagues totally interested. And the one thing about hockey is the hockey community is, I mean, throughout the internet is probably one of the strongest communities and most dedicated communities I've ever seen in 13 years. And I mean, nothing else has really come close. Like the hockey guys stick around. Right. And they love it. They want to play more of it. But I honestly think a lot of that has to do with the fact of the sport. I think the sport is probably the best sport that translates to a video game. And I've kind of studied that a bit, and I'm pretty sure that's very accurate. The hockey guys love playing video game hockey. It's a fun game to play. Whereas baseball gets kind of boring. Football gets kind of repetitive. Basketball, I mean, basketball's fun now. You can do a 5-on-5, but the community's never really caught on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we've tried many different leagues. I mean, the other thing too we've learned is sometimes it's not worth even trying some of these leagues because the community's not there. It's kind of a chicken of the egg type of deal, right? You want,
Right.
you want to support what the people want, but if the people aren't there to want it, then there's no point in supporting them. So, I mean, we've always been mostly a predominant hockey site with, stuff on the side. Right now, we have a lot of leagues. I mean, we have a golf league that just finished up for both PlayStation and Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
We have the LGBA is on its 10th season. It's been there for 4 years, but it's a small group of guys. It's never really kind of branched out. FIFA's going strong now that we got Bryson. Bryson's a very strong commissioner. He knows all the tools. He knows how to manage people. He knows how to get, a league running. That will be a successful league. Rocket League just started up, finished the first season very successfully. That'll probably catch on. We're thinking, I guess, if one area I've always wanted to expand would probably be shooters, because shooters is always a shooter to play. Now,
Right.
Problem with shooters is a ton of other sites that do it, that have the history, they have the numbers, they have the community. But I would like to offer something for honestly just LG. Like, the new Call of Duty game come out. Why don't we just do some type of event where people can play 2 nights a week in an organized fashion? So,
Right.
if I had to say one area I would really want to expand upon, it would probably be something shooters. Like I've created now the LG system, all the stuff you have for hockey, stats, scheduling, mobile app, all game clips, live streaming, all that stuff. I've created all that for shooters, and I've done it where a shooter league could literally pop up overnight. So if a new shooter came out, like Overwatch or what's coming out soon, I think something else is coming out soon, like we could almost create a league overnight for those type of things. And I think that's kind of what it might be successful. But I'll tell you right now, it's 100% leadership. It's 100% the people that run the leagues. The actual full-on commissioner that says, I'm going to run this league. I'm going to get, I'm going to make sure I have the right managers in place, the right staff, and then it really starts from there. So.
Well, you kind of led into my next question, but see if we can expand a little bit more on it. Obviously the sports leagues are big, but was there an immediate interest when you started out in doing more than just your typical sports? You mentioned Rocket League. The golf club is. I mean, golf obviously is a typical sport, but not one that you necessarily would think that would lend itself to an online league like this. Was there interest immediately in other than sports leagues, or has that taken time to build up?
Well, I get maybe a PM a week from somebody saying, let's do this type of league, let's do a UFC league. Well, I don't think anybody wants to play UFC, So, I mean, we get, honestly, any game you can think of. Like there's a guy, TCX, which we all know, he's doing a Pokemon league. There's opportunities to do a whole bunch of different type of leagues. It's just, so, I mean, the other thing we're learning, and I'm sort of getting better at now, is kind of saying no to ones I think that will never sort of get off the ground.
Right.
Like I get people that want to do a wrestling league. I'm like, oh yeah, 100 people might like that, but then 100 people might like that for a couple days. And then the problem is it almost takes about a month to get a good league off the ground, like to actually get it from the point you're going to do signups, because you need about 3 or 4 weeks to get people to sign up. You're going to then need to recruit people that are going to be help your staff. Right. If it's a team league, you need to figure out how many teams you're going to have and who's going to run them. Then you're going to have to run into whatever you're going to do to get people on teams, whether it's bidding or a draft. Then you're going to have to actually get the players to be educated. System, the dates, the times, the signups, all that stuff. So it takes time. So I usually have to be pretty early or more now. I'm very sort of critical of who I kind of put my backing to. Unless I see a solid plan and dedication from people, I'll usually look the other way. Especially if it's a type of league where I have to actually build a new stat system. Like if you guys wanted to do a wrestling league, well, what kind of stats are you gonna do for wrestling league? Is it a you versus you, or is it a team, or how is it gonna work, right?
Right.
Those type of changes are big changes to the system. So now it's my type of involvement that's really gonna come into play, and now that I have to make a decision. Is it worthwhile to invest all that time and effort into it?
So we've been talking about the creation of the league, and I want to throw a question in there from user here on YouTube named Simulation Nation, and we may have covered this, but you may want to give a quick synopsis of what made you decide to create League Gaming. I know we talked a lot about that, but in a sentence, is there really a Is it because I just wanted to do this, or
Yes.
is it that simple?
It's I wanted to play organized hockey, and back in 2003, there was nothing to do that. Because if you think about what games were in 2003, they were just online mode. Do you want to play online versus somebody? Like, it was that. Right. No other features, no club, no leaderboards even. It was just, do you want to play an online person? So I'm like, yes, I do, but I also want to then right. build importance into the games. And then that's where the league came in, and then that's where the organization and structure and programming came from. So, and then we've expanded upon it. I think what we do right now is, I think we're probably one of the best gaming sites out there for what we do. With all the Twitch streaming, the OCR. I mean, how kind of smart is the way we do stats?
Right.
All the stat systems, the organization, the mobile apps, the scheduling. So it's really grown. I mean, I think the biggest growth really has come in the last 2 years, moving to the next gen. I mean, I think about this all the time when where we were in 2003 when we started just playing versus hockey, to where I can watch every game as long as somebody streams, and most people stream. Right. On Xbox, when somebody takes a video, just says Xbox record that, or takes a screen or whatever, that automatically attaches to the game, and then I can see all the highlights. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Right. So
and
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, and then the fact that we do things like top 10s for Xbox, because we can just, I don't know if you've seen the system in the Xbox. So one of the cool things, because I'll tell you one of the biggest differences between Xbox and PlayStation is Xbox actually gives us an API. And right, that's huge. Right. So with that API, the first thing it lets us do is it lets us verify people who they are. Right? If you log on to LG and you say, log in with your Xbox, it sends its OAuth, it sends them to Microsoft.com. Then we actually get your gamer tag, and we know that you're actually that person. Whereas even today for PlayStation, you can literally register under anybody else's PSN gamer tag, and we truly can't verify it. So that's huge. So we stopped cheating right there. And the other thing with Xbox they give us all your screenshots and all your videos. Right. And then from there, we take those lists. So let's say you're scheduled for a game tonight at 10 o'clock for hockey. We'll then look at anything you upload from Xbox between 10 o'clock and 10:45. And if it's an Xbox clip, we'll automatically attach it to the game. Just smart stuff like that. And then we take it one step further where, okay, if you had a great play, all you got to do is click, a button that shows up on the Xbox site that says submit to top 10. And then you submit to the top 10. And then we have a guy that once a week goes through all the submissions and then just basically orders them 1 to 10. This is the best clip. This is the 10th clip. And then I have another script that makes that into one video. Just those type of tools that we could never have done 10 years ago.
Right.
So I'm really impressed just how much we can do now. And the fact that and even today, when we started out, 13 years ago, there's just a silly fan site. We're at the point now where we have 3 guys that go to EA every time there's game changers. We have Nuge, we have McDonald, we have Tony, 3 guys that now represent LG and get our interests and what we want into the game directly, to the heads of the EA. We're now to the point where we're actually curving what we want into the game, which is pretty amazing if you think about it.
Yeah, it's I think the technology is somebody who is who, like myself, who deals with some of that. I think that's the part of it that's been amazing to me, is where the technology has gone, the leaps and bounds that have been made in gaming that I wouldn't have thought of. And I think I was certainly impressed with the way you guys handle, being able to post videos when someone's streaming, being able to get, just take screenshots and get stats in. I mean, I think all of that, and what you're saying, Xbox being someone who you guys have partnered with and have, built a good relationship with them. I like to see that, certainly with PSN, because it would make things a lot easier on our end.
Oh, yeah, and we're trying too. It's just Sony's just different. Sony's different because you're dealing with Europe, you're dealing with Japan, you're dealing with North America. They're not easy to deal with, and they don't respond to us. We're not big enough on their radar, which is unfortunate. So if anybody from Sony or has a connection to Sony's listening, tell them to contact me. I would happily do everything I can do for Xbox into PlayStation. I'd happily promote your game list and if you're live and all that stuff.
Right. So I want to just build a little bit more on that and talk about some of the other some of the other things that now happen. We talk about streaming a game, and a site like Twitch, who makes it really easy, at least from the PS4 side, to start streaming immediately. How much of a difference has something like Twitch made in the gaming world? I know that's like throwing bait at a barracuda, but what have sites like Twitch done to make this a better experience?
So I would say in the 13 years, it's the biggest game changer. Right. And that's saying a lot. Like, that is the biggest game changer because it's actually changed our focus. Our focus used to be a community site, forums, you go there, look at stats, to now I want to be a content site. I want to be so when you go to LG, you go there to watch the best hockey. Right. And why not? We can do that with all the tools we have. You can go on LG at 8:30. We're going to have a game there. Like even today, we're going to have a game there of right now we're in the playoffs in CHL. And then another game that's going to be for the AHL, and then another game for the NHL. So I want to be more of a content site because we can now turn into basically, LG TV, so to speak. We're giving you, the best hockey, online hockey in the world. So it's, and that kind of expands the marketplace a little because you're turning into esports. And that's kind of the goal I would like to go down, and to be, the basically esports for hockey, because we kind of do everything that esports does without money and all that involved, and just sort of expand on it and just really take it to the next market. Because I think, I mean, do you ever watch some of those streams yourself?
Oh, absolutely. What really got me interested in doing more of the multimedia stuff while gaming was going on Twitch. I mean, I'm like one of those knuckleheads who, at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, I can't sleep, but I'll tune in and start watching someone's live broadcast of a game. I'm too tired to get up and go play, but, it's good to watch a game for 15, 20 minutes. And,
or someone stuck at their desk, right? They want to watch the game that their team played last night,
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge tool, Tristan. I mean, that's what we do now. When we do the week in review, myself, Miranda Conda, and Vihai, we are watching these games. We're getting the link from your site. We're going back and watching what people have done. And, that's the amazing part of this to me, is not only to get the chance to see somebody live while you're playing with them, but to go back now and be able to watch games that were played on a gaming, on a gaming system is just absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, I think that's one thing LG does better than anybody else, is we thought about this. Right. Because Twitch has had an API for about 4 or 5 years, and I'm as a developer, I'm like, I know Twitch does this, so how can we kind of use that to the best of LG, and you can see it progress. I don't know how long you've been there. I can't remember the dates I've added stuff, but the idea that if you're going to be at a game at 10 o'clock, I'm going to start checking your Twitch feed automatically if you've linked it to the site. Right. That only happened a year ago. Right. And then I took it one level further. I'm like, okay, well, instead of your live feeds, why don't I look if you've done any past broadcasts, because Twitch will save that if you have that saved. Okay, well, how do I bring that? It's just so much easier to the user. And then that's where the idea came from, when you see a completed game and there's that replay button. Yeah. It should be that easy. Yeah. And why isn't it that easy? The tools are all there. So but what I think LG does the best is that type of thinking, bringing that together, because I think the fact that you bring something to somebody is 1,000,000 times more effective. And I think that's what we do better than anybody else. It's that kind of sort of thought. Right. And I think it makes a difference. I think more people are now watching game replays because they're linked properly, and and more people. I get I see all the PMs of how do I link my Twitch, and why is my Twitch not linking? Because people care now, and that's the other thing too. Is if you link your game properly, you're going to get more viewers. It's just fact. You're going to get more viewers because people are going to watch it.
So you talked a little bit about the direction you'd like to go in being more of a media site, about making the stuff available for people to watch, to head more down the road of a Twitch. So at a high level, how far can you see League Gaming go? At least let's not look that far in the future, but let's look like 5 years down the road. Where do you see this site?
good question. I hope we're doing more with the content. I mean, so I'll tell you one idea we had that we kind of sort of had to abandon is we wanted an LG Twitch channel, which we have. And I wanted that LG Twitch channel to be 24/7 games. Right. So that if you're bored in the middle of the night, you can just turn on our channel. And then when big games are on, or any game is on, it goes into that channel.
Right.
We couldn't do it technically because we would have to. So we in Twitch you can host other people, but all you're doing is redirecting them to that stream, not to your stream.
Right.
And that that's what killed us, because if we could just have just LG stream, we would have just controlled the host, who we had, and that idea was kind of what we really wanted to go towards, because you would just go to LG whether you're in the league or not. Because I guess that's the other thing I'm trying to get away from is, I mean, we have a huge user base. We have 2,000 people in the PlayStation League, 3,000 Xbox. We have people that are just for HUT, people for Rocket League. But what if anybody just wanted to watch, again, the best hockey would just go to League Gaming, or even the best esports would just go to League Gaming. That's kind of what we wanted to go to, but technically it would be a hard challenge to do. But that's kind of the idea, I guess, to expand upon. So if in 5 years I would like to be more of an actual content site and have it where, I mean, we do our leagues and everybody's playing in their leagues, but we promote you better. If you just, if you're an all-star player and you're playing against an all-star line, people know that, at 8 or 10 o'clock or whatever time your game's going to be, they're going to see a great game. So people just come to our site and come to LG or come to our Twitch, hopefully our site, and then watch, that, because that is what we produce. But then there's also legal fees. Technically, we don't own that content. Twitch owns that content.
Right. Right.
We lose. I mean, they make all the money on ads for every time you watch a stream. We don't, But I mean, But just the fact that we can still do that, I think promoting your product, promoting your games, I think is something we should do a lot better. But I think we do better than anybody else. I mean, if you've played in other leagues, it's night and day. I'd like to think so. So
yeah, I definitely. It's not just my opinion. That's definitely the opinion of guys I play with. If you see any discussions on the League Gaming site, you're never going to see somebody say, "Well, so and so does this much better than you guys." You just don't see that happen. And actually, this season, I am playing in 2 other leagues, and quite honestly, it was by accident because I didn't know I was still signed up for them. But
you can say the site. That doesn't bother me.
It was good for me because it gave me a perspective of not just seeing League Gaming, but seeing a couple of other sites that are fairly well known for hockey gaming. And it's great that there are outlets for people, and I would never say that they should go away. It's nice, but it is
absolutely.
It's an effort that that doesn't necessarily match up with what you guys do on League Gaming. And I think I think obviously you guys have thought of a lot more. Maybe some of these other sites will expand eventually, but it's been good exposure to see how I feel about it, to see how other players feel about it. And so I think it goes without saying that they're happy to be able to keep playing every day, because in the end, a lot of these guys don't want to take off Friday, Saturday, but there are some people who actually want to go out and do something on those days. So it makes sense to have them off. But
I'll talk a little bit about what we do, because I mean, there obviously. So I mean, you're in a situation where you're joining hockey community for the first time, right?
Right.
But a lot of people came over from other sites. I think VG. Honestly, I don't even know what that stands for. I know the name VG. Yeah, I know that's probably where a lot of people kind of came from, and I find that sort of transition fascinating to me, because I'm kind of like, I don't know, I love sort of history. I love the kind of the challenge of it, and we made a very conscious decision that with this new generation from going from Xbox 360 to Xbox One to PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, we knew the writing was on the wall for Xbox, because it got hammered moving to this new generation.
Right.
So we as a group, Brody and myself and I and my people that are close to me, EMLB Commish, he's very involved with those discussions. We made a decision. We're like, we have to move to PlayStation, offer another league. And I find the way we did it was very, very, very good, because we knew somewhat what was out there. We knew the players that were out there. We've lost a lot of players that went to PlayStation on this new generation. And we looked at what other leagues were doing. but we made a decision within ourselves to take everything we have in Xbox and then just make a PlayStation copy and not compromise. You know, and I think that was what we did extremely well, because we took our rule book and then we just said, now it's also the PlayStation rule book as well. We took our game times. It's now the PlayStation game times as well. And the fact that we took basically a carbon copy of it and put it over versus really trying to compete with another site, I think was just a very, very smart move and a very easy transition. And I think it worked out, like I said at the beginning of the show. I think how fast we grew is just incredible. So I mean, I find that whole transition very, very fascinating, because if you want to speak about the other history of LG, so I created the very first hockey league, the team hockey league, which is the LGHL, around 2007. 2K Sports hired me, and I went and worked for 2K Sports as their online web engineer. Basically, they saw League Gaming and said, "Why don't you do it for us?" So I worked on NBA 2K, MLB 2K, and NHL 2K, all the way to I think 2K11. All those titles. And then when I came back, I gave the site over to somebody else to run. And when I came back, it was no longer the #1 site for hockey. Another site called League Arena sprung up. The actual guy that created that site came to, started in LG, loved it so much. He's like, this happens all the time when people are like, I'm going to make my own league. Well, he took that league and made it into even I think it's about 3 or 4 times bigger than what I had it when I left. So when I came back to LG, I'm like, okay, we're no longer #1. I basically made it my mission to make it #1, and to take down this other site that had everybody had the best players. It had a better constitution. It had a better rule book, which is the constitution. It had, it had all the names that were there. It took almost a year and a half to bring that site down, but I brought it down. So when I go down into PlayStation, I'm like, okay, we're obviously so far behind all the other sites that are doing this. Right. Let's start slowly. Let's kind of watch how we do it. And to see how fast we grew, to in my opinion, we're the #1 PlayStation site for hockey. And to see us do that in one season, I think is just remarkable. And just a true testament of all the people that are, behind the scenes that are just, my staff is phenomenal. Like They really are good, and the amount of hours they put into it. I mean, my God, you just see all the discussions that go on every day. It's quite the interesting process, I'll say the least. But again, the history of it's very cool, I think.
Yeah, I think the dedication to gaming, the dedication to the hockey is shown in your staff. It's shown in the players, for sure. I mean, it's amazing. You get these guys who complain about not playing and what have you, but for the most part, 99% of them out there are just more than happy to be on, playing every night, playing with a bunch of guys that they just met who, they're making new friends online. It's a whole social, environment that we all understand is going on these days, with everything that is internet based, but it's a community. It really is a community of people, and they pick on each other and they have fun doing it from time to time. But I think if this all went away tomorrow, there'd be a lot of pretty disappointed people, and it's grown that much that quickly.
Yeah, and we got, speaking of going away pretty quickly, we got DOS attacked twice in the last, I think, 4 months.
Wow.
I don't know if were you there for any of that?
I don't think I really knew much about it, though, no.
We had people try to take us offline. We got the same level of attack that took down the Sony network, went after us.
Wow, I did not know that. So
yeah, and to the point where it blew up one of our servers, to the point where I actually considered not even bringing LG back. But honestly, all that what you just said there about people, depending on LG. I mean, people are in the chat box all day. This is where they meet their friends. This is where they show off. This is where they this entertainment. I honestly wear that badge. I swear to everybody, I wear that badge, and that's why I take it very seriously, and that's why I don't sort of, take liberties with LG or, and people, because a lot of people put trust in what we do here, and I take that very seriously. So,
well, before we get on to any questions that we have coming in, the last thing I wanted to ask was about anything immediate that's coming up on the League Gaming site, any immediate updates or upgrades or anything specific that's going on that you want to talk about?
Well, so one area we always planned on doing a better job on is, okay, so this is mostly for Xbox, is we want to build actual apps on the consoles. So, I mean, we have mobile app on Android and iPhone, technically Windows Phone, I got to redo that one. But we want to have an actual app so that you can go, so let's say you're on your PlayStation 4, you can load up the LG app, and then there's the games. Because remember, we want to go more content-based.
Right.
So, and then maybe you can, because you're already logged into PlayStation, you can already, bring up your team, your locker room, your schedule, all that stuff. That's not immediate, but that's very doable for Xbox, and maybe something we'll even have before NHL 17. I'd also like to redesign the mobile app. That app hasn't been updated in a year. I can definitely do a better job, more features. I look at the traffic. I think we're almost 50-50 between mobile traffic and web traffic. Oh, wow. It's insane. And that's another trend I've seen over the last 13 years. That mobile trend is phenomenal. So something we have to address. Another part we want to do is more of one thing I think we do a poor job in is new users. If you're a new user to the site, how do you get the information you need? Yeah. How do you sign up properly? How do you get, after you've signed up, how do you get the new information you need? That's part of a package I kind of want to reinvent and do properly, because I think we do a terrible job on that, but it's so hard to do because things change all the time. And the second thing the other thing we want to do eventually is a new homepage. But again, that kind of goes back into being more of a content-based site. I want to turn it, when you go to LG, you're watching, again, the best hockey game that's going on, and just more information, because when you go to LG right now and it kind of goes into a form page, most people are like, oh, it's a form site. But if we can, have maybe a better homepage that has more information of who we are. If you've ever seen the CHL right now, there's an amazing video that our guy Jeremy did. He's a professional video editor. Just more content like that. So, those are all the things that, we could probably do better. So, immediately those are all on the back burner. Like, those are all things we're all improving it, or trying to improve every day. So that's the immediate updates I want to do. I'm always looking to improve. This isn't really non-disclosure, but I'm hoping to get an actual API from EA this year for next year.
Oh, wow.
So my stats might be automatic. They haven't promised anything, but we're pushing it through the channels. If we get that, then think about what we could do with stats. Think about what we could do with information. Think about what we could do with automation. Think about how that would change us from everybody else and whatnot. So, there's a lot of, this wheel has been reinvented a million times over for the last 13 years. There's always something new we can do. The other thing right now is maybe we might integrate into YouTube. A lot of people do, or some people stream into YouTube. We could do a better job in that. So there's honestly, I can go down the list of all these features I want to do.
Yeah. So with the time we have remaining here, we may take it up to 9. We may not. It depends. Although the way Tristan answers my questions, I think we could probably go to 11. So let's go to a question. Let's go to a question I got today on the League Gaming site from O Canada 27. He said, ask him how he picks owners and how does that interview go. What do you look for in owners? I guess as far as owners of the teams in let's just say NHL. Obviously, if he's a hockey player, he wants to know how the ownership process is done. Yeah.
So I let mostly Brody and their staff handle the actual interview process. But the main thing we look for is usually consistency and maturity, and usually, and if we can judge time, because a lot of ownership is time, dedication, knowing the players. Because I guess the joke around the league is Arizona. Yeah. So we look for all the things that we think are going to make the league overall successful versus the individual being successful. So it's a pretty thorough process. We've gotten much better at it, and I think I think it's starting to show, especially in the Xbox League. But the other difference, though, between PlayStation and Xbox is really within the Xbox community, we know everybody by now.
Right.
And I can't stress that is a big sort of benefit for Xbox. Like, the learning curve on PlayStation this year was high for everybody. Everybody's learning the tools. Everybody's learning the system. Everybody's learning the stat system, the schedule system, obviously all the rules. we're learning who the players are, who the owners are, who would make a good owner, who makes a bad owner. Whereas Xbox, honestly, we know this already. We know if they're going to be a good manager or they've done it before. So
right. Let's see, another question here from the from Oso Sick, the LGHL PSN Edmonton Oilers owner. Have you ever considered changing or upgrading the Pick'em system poll that asks who will win the game? Be cool to see your pick history and be able to compare it to other users' pregame predictions.
Okay, so probably the most requested feature I get is LG Fantasy.
Well, that's
and
interesting.
That kind of leads into that as well, right? Like it's almost like a fantasy system. Yes, that's a good question to bring up, because that has been brought up a lot. Where what's the point of voting on a game where it's a sort of a one-off system? Why not make it something where the history is there? And yeah, that is something I want to do, and I probably will do. I just don't have a time frame for doing it. But this actually wouldn't be that hard to sort of have like a stat leaderboard for it.
So you're talking about like a fantasy league pick'em, or you're talking about like what you would do in football, where you pick every game every week and then you keep a record of whoever's doing the best.
Well, that's kind of so people wanted to do that later version of where like I can pick the best players and whatnot, but then you're running into, honestly, people throw games. Like, you would hear it all the time of stupid stuff and people doing this and that. Like I don't want to get that deep into it. But the other thing that doing a whole type of fantasy system would be a big addition, like a lot of programming, a lot of testing. And then I got to ask myself, who would actually do that?
Yeah, that's true.
Not too many people within the league of 2,000 people. You think you're going to get 200 at 10%? Probably not. So I'm doing all this whole system for maybe 50 people. I mean, I'm trying to get to the point now with what I code is going to be for the broader stream, because again, the tools we've done over the last 13 years, you'd be amazed how many people don't know what we do or what options are there. Like, so today was a big day in the Xbox world because they released 1 million gamer tags that were reserved. So today, all these guys were changing their gamer tags, the ones that weren't there before. And the number one question probably in the chat box is, how do I change my username? Well, we have a system for that.
Yeah. One of the guys here on the YouTube channel, By Gladiator, asked, "What's your opinion on the new gamer tag changing on Xbox, and does you think bidding next season will be different?"
Okay, so I think it's a good system because I'll tell you the one thing I kind of criticize certain people for is changing their name. Right. My name, Tristan. So if you want to know where my name comes from, my first name is Tristan. So Tristan is, a play on my name. Right. And that's my branding. I've had that gamer tag since day one beta, and I've never changed it. My Gmail, all that stuff is all, that brand. Like, I've built a brand on me. So, when you pick a name, try to brand yourself, because if you ever want to be, in esports or just people to remember you, or, you're in another game 5 years from now and you're like, hey, didn't I play you in that website? I forgot what it's called, but I recognize the name. Brand yourself. So I think what this opening up does, it releases a lot of the names that were like unused, and that helps you brand because those names are either shorter or not stupid. Because so many people have like X's in their names, and,
right.
Those little L's or I's or whatever they are in a number and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To me, that's silly. Like,
and the apostrophes and the 50 umlauts and whatever else they can put in there.
So I'm actually a big fan of it. As long as people don't keep changing their name, pick a good one, stick with it, be that guy. I think it's a great idea. And how it's going to affect bidding is we already monitor gamertag changes already. So in bidding, technically, that little search box, if you put in their old gamertag, at least for Xbox, it will pick up that name of what their new gamertag is. So we already do that. We've honestly, guys have been doing scummy stuff for 5 years now. We have a lot of scum controls, I call them, to make sure people don't do scummy stuff. So.
Let's see, Ryan Morris, will there be a MLB The Show League?
Yeah, you know what? That's one thing I wanted to do, but I was asking. So I want to do the same thing we do for Hut, which is an open type of league where play whatever you want, open challenge, do all that. I was hoping to get more people to upload images so I could test the OCR with, and I think I got one. I'm like, nobody's even bothering helping me. Maybe the interest isn't there to build the OCR for it. So honestly, if you want that, help me get images that I need. I posted in the MLB forum what I need to a hashtag. If you can get me that, and if I see enough interest, I'd be happy to do it. I mean, I want to expand the LG system because, so I mean, most of our leagues are team leagues, but I mean, the idea of doing singles leagues with the challenge system, that system's there. Everything I build now, I can expand upon all the different sports. Wouldn't be that hard. So if you guys want an MLB league, you got to at least help me. And then once we create it. When it's just a matter of running it. So
right.
So the short answer is I hope. But
let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. I know Irish Sean says he would he said he'd stop playing and just make his fantasy team sick if he did fantasy. That's it for the actual questions. But I guess the one more thing I would ask at this point are, the way things have progressed so far, season 1 for PSN, now we're into season 2. After season 1, what were your expectations coming into this next season? Obviously, you knew a lot of people signed up. We had huge training camp rosters. You knew that a CHL, obviously people were clamoring last season for a CHL. You knew that was going to happen. So what were your expectations coming in for season 2?
Well, I mean, my expectations was a fully functional third tier, which is the CHL. And obviously we got that. I mean, Haji worked very hard with Commish.
Right.
Those two were very good at sort of, getting the new guys out, getting the new people. Everything we do for the first time in PlayStation, I expect sort of some headwind on it. And we are getting headwind on it. But, I mean, we're obviously growing to the point where it needs to be there. I think the training camps now for CHL are 60 people strong, or the total rosters are 60 people strong. So the interest is there. I mean, the real problem we have is we cannot properly keep up with interest versus, what we can support, because, when you select teams, you've got to select teams a couple weeks before that season starts. And then your season, at least in the CHL, runs 8 weeks plus playoffs. You're looking at 3 months a season, but you have to have, your teams in place for how the season is going to be at the end of 3 months. And you'll never do that. You'll never do that because you can never get people to sign up early enough or at the proper time. So, I mean, we had the same problem with Xbox. So, I mean, the other solution we're running into, doing is we have now the development team. I don't know if you guys have seen that. The development team, they've been doing it in the CHL, where they'll take everybody that's a training camp and run side leagues. They'll also run side games. Just, because I mean, the other problem we have is people sign up. If you're on a training camp where there's 50 other people, you're probably not going to play a game this season, or not play more than one. And then we can't keep them interested. Right. So if you can't keep people interested and get them into the system, you're never going to properly grow. But I mean, that is the problem with numbers. That is the problem with the type of league we do. We need the people to sign up early on and commit early on, but you're not going to get that. I mean, we get about a couple hundred people a week that sign up for LG and sign up into the new leagues. So after 9 weeks, that's 1,000 people.
Right.
So what do you do with 1,000 new people?
Yeah, we've already gotten those kinds of emails. I know Maranaconda for the Bears in PSN. He, my GM, he's gotten, we've seen the emails, we've seen the chat box with the, hey, I'm on this team in the CHL. How come I don't get to play? And when are you guys going to call me for a game? It's like, okay, you have to understand there are layers of guys here, and I think what you mentioned is the ownership that the CHL has done in saying, okay, this is an incredibly important job. And in some ways, I think it may be the most important. What you're talking about is that player development, to keep people interested, to run these games, during the week, on the weekends, to get these guys out and playing and noticed. And I think, to me, that's what a lot of these guys have to remember, is that we've got an NHL and an AHL and now a CHL filled up with players. It's going to take some work, but you can't just show up and say, hey, I'm ready to be a star. You've got to actually make some commitment to it.
Yeah, that should be expected. I mean, it's a two-way street. The player, should expect certain things, but they should also, the management should expect certain things back on the player. So it's a two-way street. The other problem is a lot of people are young and
Right.
sort of, I come to the site. Why am I not playing tonight? Why am I not your best player? There is a lot of that, and I find that the community is actually very good at sort of like putting those people in their place politely. Usually,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
this is how things are done.
Yeah.
You gotta pay your dues, which is great because once people go through the system, they usually stay in the system, and then they're educated in the system. They know the rules, they know the times, they know what to expect. All that makes the next leagues and the next seasons better and better, which is actually kind of an interesting sort of arc. When again, one that the PlayStation is going to have a tough time doing because it's the first time it goes through it. But I mean, there's a lot of things we can do. So I mean, I actually built a new system that would be a tier below the CHL. And how that system would work is, so the CHL is, obviously unconnected to the AHL, but is connected through the training camps that we have. That's why we have people on two different rosters. We created a new system where under the CHL, a manager or anybody can create a game, and then anybody that's on the TC can sign up for those games.
Right.
And then it would actually have its own stats.
Right.
So maybe if you're a training camp player, the idea is to build that whole league up where it's another tier that's kind of random, but stats count. Managers can then get those stats.
Mm-hmm.
You are now contributing something. You are now learning the system. You are now learning how to sign up. You are learning who your teammates are or your managers are, and then you're going through it, all while staying active in LG and not sort of signing up and going away. But that's another tier we'd have to try to create. We need people that would run that, people that would actually manage that, and that creates the whole other problem of, another tier.
Right, yeah.
But that's got to be that's the only solution we can really come up with that will actually properly, I think, will work.
Well, that's
it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, that's the growing pain that you have to, you want this to be successful, but obviously there are going to be growing pains like this. And then what do you do with this? You have to be ready with a solution. And at least you guys are starting to formulate, what a plan might be moving forward. And I think at the very end, at the very least, that has to be thought of, and you're doing that. But I think also if you're counting on the dedication of the hardcore players and the ones who are mature enough to care, I kind of think you've got the community who can do that. So I think a lot of those thoughts and ideas probably could work. But like you said, it takes a lot of organization. You guys have done a fantastic job with this. You've mentioned some of them. We'll talk about some of the other folks on your staff as we go along. But you guys have contributed a lot of your own time on this, and I know a lot of folks before I came to talk to you tonight we're thrilled to get a chance to hear from you and are big fans of the site. So Tristan, thank you very much again for your time tonight, and we'll hopefully meet up with you again in a couple of weeks.
Right, appreciate you having me. Appreciate the time, and I hope you guys enjoy LG, and I hope you help us grow, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be the best community, and it happens with your guys' efforts, and it all starts there. I mean, what's the point of running a big league that's empty, right?
Exactly. All right, that's Tristan Hodge. I am Tony Sabilla, and we will talk to you in a few weeks on another edition of Ask the Commish.